Okay, students, I hope everything is going well with each of you. I would say good morning or good evening or good afternoon whenever you're listening to this lecture. Today's lecture will be on contracts. Now, we may not get through all the contract lecture today. If we don't, we'll get some of it in the next lecture. Contracts, again, is a 1 year's course in law school. Contracts 1, contracts 2. We'll do it, and part of it in this first hour, and then do another lecture. Probably continue on that on contracts. Again, I'll go through some of the test questions as we go through the lecture today. Okay. All right. Let's look at your handout. Look at what's on that handout. What's on your computer here. First, I look at what are the elements of a valid contract. Okay. We'll talk about that. A lot of textbooks, the elements would be a different chapter. We'll talk about that in some details here in just a minute. All right. First of all, you have the agreement. All right. That's pretty easy. And the agreement we'll learn later on what you have to have an offer and an acceptance. When I went to law school, you had what you call the subjective theory of contracts. That was the old meeting of the minds rule. The law was that there had to be a meeting of the minds from the offeror and the offeree. So when the jury would decide whether or not there's been a breach of contract, they had to decide if there was a meeting of the minds. Well, that's no longer the law. The law now is the objective theory of contracts. And that is, what would a reasonable person believe if they saw the offeror or the offeree, the parties to the contract, negotiating, going through the contracts, who breached the contract? What would a reasonable person think? Not was there a meeting of the minds. That was kind of like how could you get in the person's brain and whatever, So you have now an objective theory of contracts. I don't think that's not on the test, but that's just something I'm throwing out there. So the elements of valid contract, number one, the agreement, and that's the offer and acceptance, okay? The second one there is consideration, and we'll find out as we go through the lecture that's something of legal value that must pass from the offeror to the offeree and the offeree to the offeror. We'll talk about something of value, consideration. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute, okay? Agreement, consideration, next capacity. When you talk about capacity, generally in your textbook you'll see that and again the test will be taken. I think you've seen so far from your handout here, but text, if you're following along, you will see this, that the capacity will deal with minors and with insane people, okay? And we will talk about that again in some detail in just a minute also, but we're just now getting an overview. What are the elements of a valid contract? And the last element is it has to be for a lawful purpose. It has to be legal. You cannot enter into a contract for an illegal purpose, such as a drug deal, or some states gambling is illegal, so you couldn't have a gambling contract, okay? So those are the elements, the agreement, which under that A would be offer, B acceptance, and then consideration, something of legal value that passes hands from the buyer to the seller to buyer, or offeror, offeree, however you want to put that. There has to be, the parties have to have the capacity to contract, and it has to be for a lawful purpose, okay? Now let's look at some other issues in contract. You see that says valid, void, and voidable contracts. Of course, a valid contract is one that meets those elements that we just talked about. The agreement, the consideration, capacity, and lawful purpose. If you meet those elements, then you have a valid contract, okay? If you get into a situation where you have a breach of contract, one of them says you don't meet those terms or whatever, but that would be a valid contract. A void contract would be a contract, let's say, entered into between a person with an insane person we'll find out later on, but that's been declared non-compos mentis by a probate judge, by a court, been declared insane. That contract would be void. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So we got a valid contract, void contract, and we got a voidable contract. If you see there, the voidable contract. A voidable contract, we'll find out later on, if you contract with a minor, it'd be a voidable contract. A voidable contract is valid in all respects, but may be avoided by a party entitled to do so. We'll find out if you contract with a minor, the contract would be voidable at the option of the minor. Okay, not the person of age, but the minor would have the option to avoid the contract. And when they reach the age, the age of majority, then they can, what the law says, affirm that contract. But any time before the age of majority, before they can ratify the contract, they can disaffirm the contract. That's a term called disaffirmance. They can disaffirm any time before they reach the age of majority. So, voidable contracts are valid in all respects, but may be avoided by a party entitled to do so, such as dealing with a minor. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. So, valid contract, void contract, voidable contract. Okay? All right. Now let's look at express, implied, and quasi contracts. An express contract is one that we negotiate. We negotiate it out. All contracts do not have to be in writing, but we'll find out later on that because of the statute of frauds, certain contracts do have to be in writing, but all contracts do not have to be in writing. That's a test question, by the way, that all contracts do not have to be in writing, okay? So express contracts, they are contracts that you and I negotiate. I offer to sell you something, you accept that, and it's an express contract. An implied contract is a contract that will be found based on a course of dealing. Suppose I have a grocery store, and suppose you're my manager, and you come up and you say to me, there's a gentleman out there with a truckload of tomatoes. He said he'd sell them for $500. And I say, okay, I give you the $500 check, you take it out to the person, and you get the tomatoes, okay? All right, that person brings those tomatoes every week for a year. And I give the check to you, you take it out to the person. We don't have any I've never met the person. You're the one, you've met them. No, not a whole lot of negotiations. I give $500 for the tomatoes. And we just keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, the person brings tomatoes and I don't send a check out to him. He leaves the tomatoes. Next week, same thing. I don't pay him. And he sues me in small claims court for $1,000. And my defense is, I don't have a contract with you. Well, the court's going to find an implied contract based on a course of dealing. Okay? In other words, that's how we've been doing business. The person brings a truckload of tomatoes, I pay him. So the court would find an implied contract there. If you buy a plane ticket, you don't negotiate with the airline, you go buy a ticket. There's an implied contract that they're going to take you from point A to point B, okay? So that's if you buy a bus ticket. You don't negotiate with the bus driver. You buy the ticket, the person takes you from here to here on the bus. It's an implied contract that they're going to do that, okay? Usually you had, back in the old days, you had tokens. You could buy tokens. When I used to ride the city buses, you buy tokens, and you step on the bus, and you put the token in the container there, and the bus driver wouldn't negotiate. You put a token in, the bus driver take you from this point in the city to this point in the city, and that's, you catch another bus, go to another point. You put a token in there. You bought your tokens, but you used tokens instead of money back in those days. But I didn't negotiate when I got on the bus. I didn't negotiate with the bus driver. I'd put my token in, and the bus driver would take me to the next point, and then I'd catch another bus and go wherever I was going. Okay, so that's what you call an implied contract. Express contract, where we negotiate, we talk about it. Implied contract based on course of dealing. A quasi contract will be found by a court to prevent unjust enrichment. A quasi contract will be found by a judge to prevent unjust enrichment. All right? Suppose I'm sitting at my house. It's on a Sunday afternoon. Some college team, or probably Sunday afternoon, be program morning. Pro football's on. If it's in the summer, baseball, whatever. But let's say it's in the wintertime, and I'm watching a pro football game. All right? And I look out my window. I got a long driveway. I live downtown. I got a long driveway. And the person starts planting shrubs up and down the driveway. I sit there and watch him. I watch him, it takes him 3 hours, 3.5 hours to do that. He comes up, knocks on my door. He's been working hard all that time. And he says, Mr. Jones, I'm planted the shrubs that you ordered. You should know that I got it done, and here's your bill. And I say to him, I'm not Mr. Jones, I'm Mr. McDaniel. And you put the shrubs in the wrong place. I didn't order those shrubs. And the person sues me. Now, he's going to win that case because I have been unjustly enriched at his expense. Okay? I saw him do it. I let him do it. And knowing he was putting it in the wrong place, and I wasn't going to pay him, and I knew I wasn't going to pay him, and so I let him do that. But he sues me, and he's going to win his case because the judge is going to say, I've been unjustly enriched at his expense. Now, when I teach this, every time I taught this in law school, hands start going up. All right, and I know what the question is going to be because I've been teaching so long. The question is going to be is, what if I didn't see him plant the shrubs? And I'm not going to have to pay him if I didn't see him. Okay. Matter of fact, I can sue him for messing up my yard. I don't have to pay him if I didn't see him. Okay. In real life, the way it happens is if the person comes into your law office, you're the lawyer, and the person tells you that story, you say to that potential client there, if you saw him plant the shrubs, you're going to have to pay him because it's a quasi-contract. You've been unjustly enriched at his expense. If you didn't see him, then you don't have to pay him. You can sue him for messing up your yard and put it back like it was. Okay? Did you see him plant shrubs? And I'll leave that to you to see whatever the answer is going to be to that. I'll leave that to you. So we have those. We have express contracts, implied contracts, and quasi contracts. Okay. Now let's look at the agreement. Look at your handout here. We talked about the elements of valid contract, and the first was agreement. Okay, you look at there. Offer must be seriously intended. All right. If I offer to sell you a 2024 Mercedes S500 for $10,000, that's not seriously intended. Okay, I'm either drunk, or I'm insane, or I'm just kidding. Okay. It's not seriously intended. It must be definite. The offer must be, we can't be, I might offer to sell you my car, or I might offer to sell you my land. It has to be a definite offer. It must be communicated to you. I can't tell somebody else. I've got to communicate it to you. The mailbox rule right there, that in parentheses, is simply this, that the acceptance, when I offer something to you, you accept when you put it in your mailbox. That's accepted. Then at that point, you accepted my offer. If I sell it to somebody else, you can sue me for that. Okay? Because that's called the mailbox rule. In the computer world, once you click the button, accept it, it's done. Okay? You accepted the offer. Okay? So the offer there, and then you have, we talked about the acceptance in just a minute. Invitations to make offers, that's what our advertisements are. You end the offers, but with a counter offer. That's one way you end an offer. One way you end the offer, just take it off the table before you ever respond. Okay. Another way is if I offer to sell you the car, the Mercedes 2024 Mercedes for $10,000. It wouldn't be all. Suppose I offer to sell you a car for $50,000. And you counter offer at $40,000. Okay, my offer's off the table. You just made a counter offer. Now it's up to me to accept that. Okay, if I have a house on the market for, let's say, $600,000, okay, and you offer me $550, that's a counter offer. Okay, can I go ahead and sell it to somebody else for $600? You countered offer. I didn't accept it. But you made a counter offer. Can I sell it to somebody else for $560 or for $6 or whatever? Can I sell it to anybody? Can I sell it for any price to anybody else? And the answer is yes, because you made a counter offer. You did not accept my offer, so that offer is over. you put a counteroffer on the table. And that's up to me to accept that. I can accept it or I not accept it. May not accept it. It's up to me. But a counteroffer ends the offer. So if you want a house or you want something, and then that's a decision you have to make. If you make a counteroffer, somebody else can certainly come in and buy that because, and if you accept and boom, you click sign it or click whatever on the computer, you got it, okay? But the counteroffer ends the offer, okay? So we've talked about an offer there. Now the acceptance can be only by the offeree and it must agree with the offer. That's called the mirror image rule. That is, if I offer to sell you the house for $600,000 and you accept that offer, then we've got a contract, okay? But it agrees with the offer. If I have certain terms in the offer and you accept all those, then you've met all the terms of the offer, and it's been done. So the acceptance agrees with the offer. It's not a counter offer. If I offer you something and I put different things in the offer, and you change one of those, then you haven't accepted my offer. That's the mirror image rule says you did not accept it because the acceptance has to mirror image the offer. Okay, otherwise you don't have a contract. You don't have the agreement, if you will. So that's what you call the agreement. And remember, we just said in the agreement you have to have an offer and acceptance. Okay, so now we've gone through the agreement part. Go back up to your number, elements, contract, agreement. So we've talked about the offer and acceptance and certain parts about the offer and acceptance. Okay, now let's go. The next term there is consideration. That's an element. Remember that we talk about an element of a contract. Consideration is an element. Okay. Consideration, we talked about this, is something of legal value that passes hands from the buyer to the seller to the buyer. If I offer to sell you my car for X amount of dollars, and you give me some money, and I give you the car keys, that's consideration. Did you have a right to the car keys without there being this offer and acceptance? Offer to sell you, you accept. You sell the car, you accept. I give you the car keys, you give me some money. Did I have a right to your money? No. Not if we don't have a contract. That's consideration. That just shows something. Indeed, you say it could be $10 and other good and valuable consideration. This just shows something of value that passes hands from the buyer to the seller to the buyer to show that we did have an agreement. Consideration, something. If I offer to sell you a watch and I give you the watch and you give me the money, you didn't have the right to have the watch unless you bought the watch. So you didn't steal it. I gave you the watch, you gave me the money. Okay. If it's expensive watch, get something in writing. We'll talk about that later on. Statute for all is over $500. It has to be in writing, but we'll talk about it in just a minute. So now we have elements of a contract. We have the agreement. We've talked about the offer and the acceptance. Another element of the agreement of the contract, element contract is consideration. Now we know about consideration. You can read 500 pages. You can read 500 cases, but that's what it means, consideration. And you just look. The adequacy of the consideration is generally not looked at. It's just that something was given there to show that you people had a contract. You're not still just negotiating. It's done. People are bad. Sometimes they keep on negotiating. But some people want to keep on negotiating, and they never really close the deal. That's a talent. I don't know why I'm veering from this, but that is, if you get in marketing, if you're taking marketing, UH or wherever you're taking the classes, that's a talent, being a deal closer. A lot of people can't close the deal. A lot of people can talk, and they talk big, but they can't close the deal. All right, you stay in business by closing deals. By the way, all right. So we have that. We have the agreement. We've talked about consideration. Now let's talk about capacity. We're talking about minors and incompetent people. All right. If you enter into a contract with a minor, all right, the contract is voidable at the option of the minor. Remember we talked about voidable contracts? What is a voidable contract? It's valid in all respects, but may be avoided by a party entitled to do so. In this case, that's the minor. The adult cannot void the contract. The minor can. In some states, most states, if you let's say you sell a car, motorcycle, whatever, to a minor, and the minor wrecks the car, the minor can avoid the contract and not have to pay you any more money, okay? Because they avoided the contract, and they have the right to avoid the contract because they are the minor. That's what it says. The minor can disaffirm. The term is disaffirm. The minor can disaffirm the contract, okay, during the age of minority. Now they can affirm the contract when they reach the age of majority. Okay, that's called when they get to be the age of majority, then they can affirm the contract. They have a reasonable time to affirm. If they don't affirm within a reasonable time, the law says it's automatically affirmed. They can't wait forever to affirm it. So a contract with a minor is voidable at the option of the minor. Now, we've already talked about if you deal with an insane person, a person has been declared judicially insane, non-compos mentis by a probate court, then that contract is void. There was never a contract. If you entered a contract, let's say you entered a contract with me, and now this is not the case, but I hope it's not. But you enter a contract with me, and my lawyer, you buy my car, and my lawyer calls you up and says, "Hey, you got to bring the car back. Mac Daniel's crazy. He's insane." Okay, and you say, "Wait, he's my teacher. I've been listening to his lectures. What?" He says, "No, he's been declared in non-compos mentis by the probate court. He's been declared judicially insane. He can bring his car back. The contract's void. You have to bring the car back. You call your lawyer if you want to, but the lawyer didn't take it. I didn't know Mark was crazy. I didn't know he was insane. But it's void. Now, what if this? What if I sell you my car, reasonable price, you want it, we agree, I offer to sell it to you, you accept it, consideration, it's lawful, my car's, it's not stolen, I got title to it, and everything's okay, and my lawyer calls you up and says, bring the car back, and you say, why? And my lawyer says, because Mark's insane. And you say, oh, well, he taught me in business law that if he was declared judicially insane, that the contract was void, so I guess it's void. And he said, well, no, Mark hadn't been declared judicially insane by probate court, but he is insane. Okay, well, now we got a problem there. You might say, well, wait a minute, he hadn't been declared judicially insane? And my lawyer says, no, but he's insane. Okay, so your lawyer says you ain't got to carry it back. So the only way I'm going to get the car back from you, and I'd give you money back to you, but the only way I'm going to have to go to court and sue you and prove I was insane. Now, that'd be a horrible thing for a lawyer, but they have to do. It wouldn't help you practice any. But if you did that, if you want to go into court and say, look, you're on the witness stand, and my lawyer said, what time did you buy the car from Mark? And you say, well, I bought it from him at 8 o'clock one night, one evening. And then my lawyer says, was a full moon out? And you said, yeah, it was a full moon. And my lawyer says, 8 o'clock and full moon. And you say, yes, sir. And my lawyer said, well, did you know that at 8 o'clock and full moon, he thinks he's a werewolf? I don't. But anyway, now if I wanted to go through that and some jury believed that, then I didn't have to be declared judicially insane, did I? But if a jury wants to believe that, then I can avoid the contract, okay? So if you've been declared judicially insane, it's void. It never came to be. But I could say I'm insane, hadn't been declared insane by court, but I am insane. Then the law says I can avoid that contract at my option. I can disaffirm it. Not your option, but it's my option. But now when I disaffirm, I'm going to have to prove that, okay? Now, if you said, when you take it on the witness stand, and my lawyer said, well, what is it? 8 o'clock in the full moon, and you say, yeah, and he started howling too. I wondered what he was howling. He was my teacher at UH, but he started howling like a wolf. Then you lose your case because it would prove that, hey, he really was. He really think I don't. But that's just kind of example there. So we know now about capacity. So now we have the agreement, elements of contract, agreement, offer, acceptance. We know about the offer and acceptance, okay? We know about consideration. Now we know about capacity. Both parties have to have the capacity to contract, okay? Now, let's look at, we talked about the marriage, let's look at legality, or number 7 down there, legal, lawful purpose. Suppose I sell you my car, but it's been stolen, and I have a fake title and everything to it. That's not for a lawful purpose. Suppose I'm gambling, okay, and I tell it's not I'm in the state, it's not legal, and I place my bet with a bookie, and I lose big, and the bookie comes to me and says, okay, McDaniel, you owe this, you lost, and I say, well, let me tell you this, I'm a lawyer. And you know that gambling contracts are illegal in this state, and I don't have to pay you. Right? Now, can I say that? Yeah, I can say it. And am I right? Yeah, I'm right. But am I going to pay that bookie? Yeah, I'm going to pay that bookie. Okay, so that's kind of a bad example. But anyway, the contract has to be for a lawful purpose. So now we got our elements. We got all our elements of the contract, don't we? We have the agreement, okay, offer and acceptance. Consideration, we've got that. We've got capacity. We've got for a lawful purpose. If let's say you bought something, you know your car is going to you've been dealing drugs, the feds are looking for you, and they're going to condemn the car, and you know that because you've been hauling dope in it, and you sell it, you run out and sell it real quick to somebody. Okay, is that for lawful purpose? No, it wouldn't be. You say, well, I would say, well, I didn't know anything was wrong. Well, suppose I say, I got a $150,000 car and I sell it to you for $10,000. You know something's wrong. Now, boy, if I sell it to you for $150,000, then you can say, hey, man, I didn't know about this. You might get to keep your car. Feds might get it anyway. But then they can always auction it off. But you have a lot better chance than if you bought a $150,000 car for, $40,000. It ain't gonna happen. You won't get by with it anyway. The contract has to be for a lawful purpose. Again, now you can read all these cases and find out what lawful must this and that and all that kind of stuff. But those are the elements of a valid contract, okay? Now let's look at the next thing we got to. Here's statute of frauds. Not frogs, frauds, statute of frauds, okay? And all that says that certain contracts have to be in writing. Some contracts, now when your test questions is that, all contracts do not have to be in writing. I think the question is what's A, B, C, D, what is not an element of a valid contract? And I've got one of them like writing. Well, you're going to answer no. That's going to be your answer because that's not required. You don't have to. All contracts do not have to be in writing, but some contracts do have to be in writing because why? Because, and it's a test question, because of the statute of frauds says certain contracts have to be in writing. Now, what contracts have to be in writing? Okay, the contract to pay the debt of another person has to be in writing. All right, you go to buy a car, and you say, "Look, I take Mark McDaniel's class, take it online. I've never met the guy, but he seems like a pretty good fella. He'll pay my car debt. He'll pay it off. Call him up and ask him." So you're at the car lot. The car dealer salesman calls me up and says, "Hey, you got a student down here who's buying a car." He says, "You'll pay for it. If he can't make payments, you'll make payments." I say, "Yeah." "Okay, I will." "Yeah." "All right. You don't make payments and the guy sues me. Am I going to pay?" "No." "Why?" "Because it wasn't in writing. I agreed to it, but it wasn't in writing. Contract to pay the debt of another person must be in writing." okay? Now, what if the person came, what if the salesman said, I'm gonna run down to your law office and get you to sign this document, and I signed it, agreeing to pay the debt, your debt if you didn't pay it. You don't pay it, I get sued. Am I going to pay it? Absolutely. Because it was in writing, wasn't it? Okay? So the contract to pay the debt of another person must be in writing. All right? B, contract to pay the debt of a deceased person. All right, now that's important because if you, let's suppose you're the executor of your grandfather's estate. And, you know, I give you these examples, and you say, "Man, this guy's kidding." No, I've seen everything that you know. Just everything example I give you. Sometimes I kind of laugh because I'm remembering cases that actually this happened. Okay. So you got a situation where your grandfather's died, you're the executor of his will. At the time of the funeral, and a lot of times you get hit with stuff like this, right? If it's visitation, right after the funeral, the day after the funeral, you get hit with things, okay? You just do. I mean, I'm old enough, I've buried relatives, a lot of them, all right? And so people come up to you and, you know, say, hey, your granddaddy told me he owed me $10,000. And he told me, now be sure to go see Mark and he'll take care of that. Well, what if granddaddy don't have $10,000 in his estate? What if I had to pay for his funeral? He didn't even have $10,000. So suppose he didn't have $10,000. Say it's $50,000. He didn't have it. All right. And I say, okay, if that's what my granddaddy said, I'll take care of it. And then the guy sues me later on. He finds out there's nothing in the estate. He sues me, says, you said you'd pay it. Am I going to pay it? Well, the answer, no. Why? Because I didn't put it in writing, because the statute of frauds says certain contracts have to be in writing, and one contract has to be in writing is where you agree to pay the debt of a deceased person. All right? Suppose that person and I always tell people, man, after you've had a death, or after you've had a divorce, some tragedy that you've had to face, some kind of breakup or whatever it is, you're not in a whole lot of position to start signing a whole bunch of things, start agreeing to a whole bunch of things, okay? So the person comes up to you and says, your granddaddy said you'd pay the $50,000. It's what he told me to come see you, and I signed saying I agree to pay it. Am I going to pay it? Absolutely, I signed something, okay? All right, so be careful. You know, call a lawyer up, call your friend, call somebody up and say, look, somebody came to see me and said my daddy or my granddaddy, my grandma owed them this money and they want me to sign this. They brought this document me to sign. Do I sign it? No, not even if you're the executor. Don't sign anything like that. Don't do anything. Wait, check things out. Okay, but don't sign anything. Don't agree to pay the debt of a deceased person. But you can check all kinds of things out, okay? So, but that would have to be in writing. Why? If you're in law school right now, the professor would say, why? And you would say, because of the statute of frauds, law professor, you know, and you would get it right. You would get that right, okay? All right, let's see, a contract in consideration of marriage. Okay, contracted consideration of marriage must be in writing. That's a kind of a touchy topic, okay? Because you know, suppose you want to marry somebody, and that person says, and she says to you, look, I got a lot of property, and I love you, but I don't want to. I mean, you got to sign this prenuptial agreement that if we get a divorce, you don't get anything. And I said, well, I love you too. You really want me to sign this thing? I really? I thought you loved me. And she says, well, I do love you. But I don't want you to get any, if we get a divorce, I don't want you to get anything. I'll tell you, I'll give you something. I'll give you a car, whatever. But I'm not going to, I'm worth millions of dollars and you're not worth anything. And I'm just not going to do that. I love you though. Well, okay, I might not want to do that. But if I sign the prenuptial agreement and everything's done right, and she has to fully disclose everything to me she's got, and also I have to, her lawyer has to tell me that you have to go see your own private lawyer. I can't be your lawyer. I'm her lawyer. So her lawyer will tell me, say, you go get your lawyer and go over this with your lawyer because, and she has to divulge everything, all of her assets to me. She has to show me what she's got so that I can know. And then if I sign it, I'm doing it voluntarily. Okay, I know what she's got, and I'm saying I love her, and I'm going to just, I don't want her money. I'm just going to do this. Okay. Now, does that have to be in writing? Yes. If it's not in writing, we have an agreement that she's not going to give me anything in case of divorce, and we don't put it in writing, then I'm going to get half of what she's got. If I stay married long enough to her, I'm going to get half of what she's got. Okay? Suppose that you're going to get married, and the young lady says, look, I'll marry you, but I want you to take care of my mama. And I said, okay, I love you. What your mama want? Well, she got to move in with us. Okay, mama, you got to give mama X amount of money every month. Mama wants a new Mercedes. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do all that. Okay, and we don't put it in writing. It's not effective. What if we do put it in writing? If we do put it in writing, and then there's a divorce, and what have I got to do that? Matter of fact, I got to do it from the get-go. Okay, what's going to happen if I don't do it? If I say I'm going to get a divorce anyway because she was, it's going to boom. You're not doing what you said you do. So that marriage is not going to last very long. But if I agree to do that in consideration of marriage, that's what I got to do. I've got to do that. Okay, but it has to be in writing, don't it? Why? Because the statute of frauds says it does. Okay. Let's see here. Contract involving the sale of real estate must be in writing. I don't know if we've talked about that yet, but a contract for the sale of real estate must be in writing. I offer to sell you my house for $600,000. You accept that, but it's not in writing. We don't have a contract. Okay. There has to be a contract. So a contract, the sale of real estate must be in writing. Okay? So also, the sale of goods for $500 or more must be in writing. The sale of real estate must be in writing. But the sale of goods, when we talk about UCC Article 2 next week, next lecture, goods are all things which are movable at the time they're identified in the contract for their sale. Goods, your textbook, your lamp, your bedroom, so anything that's movable. Real estate is not, but something attached to real estate would be a fixture. That's not goods, but selling an animal would be goods. A car is goods. Anything that's movable. Your briefcase, garbage can sitting over there. That's goods. Okay, if it's movable, anything that's movable. It's goods, and if you contract for the sale of goods for $500 or more, that must be in writing. Okay? Why? Because of the statute of frauds. All right? So, do all the contracts have to be in writing? No. Your test question, no, all contracts don't have to be in writing. But some contracts do have to be in writing because of the statute of frauds. Now, let's get a few test questions before we go further here. All right, let's see here. Let me get the test. I got my test here. I'm going to return some of the questions here. Let's see. Start number 20 here. Let's see here. All right. Sarah offered to sell her bike to Chris for $400. Chris replied, quote, your price is too high. I'll pay $300. Chris's response is A, negotiation, B, counteroffer. Do I have to go further? The answer is B, counteroffer. Okay? All right. here's another test question. Occasionally, a person will be unjustly enriched at the expense of another. No express contract exists. No conduct occurred to imply contract, yet it is unjust for one individual to be enriched at the expense of another. A remedy in a case like this is called A, unilateral contract, B, quasi-contract. Do I have to go further than B? I don't. C is express, D is unenforceable, but the answer is B, quasi-contract. Okay? And next question. An agreement that will not be enforced because it calls for the performance of an illegal act is A, a voidable contract, B, a valid contract, C, an executed contract, D, a void contract. Answer, void. Just saying a void contract is really it's void, okay? All right, let's keep going here. Here we go. Here's a tricky question. I've been trying to get you ready for this one. All right, which of the following is not always an element of a contract? A, agreement, B, in writing. B, we've been talking about that. C is consideration, and D is legality. So the answer there is B, all contracts do not have to be in writing, okay? All right, next, minors can enter into contracts, and they also have the right to avoid their liabilities under the contracts, subject to certain exceptions. This right is called the right to A, disavow, B, defirm, C, disaffirm. Answer is going to be C, isn't it? It's going to be that's called disaffirm. All right, next question. This is the act, this is number 29. I won't tell you the number of all of them, but it's number 29. All right, this is the act of accepting and giving legal force to a contract. Only after minors reach adulthood can they adopt contracts made when minors. A, disaffirmance, B, ratification. Answer is going to be B, ratification. C, reaffirmance, D, recognition. But the answer is B, ratification. Okay? Let's see here. Okay, while some agreements may be oral, others are required to be in writing. A contract for the sale of land, A, is required to be in writing. The answer is going to be A. B is not required to be in writing. C is governed by the UCC, and D is none of the above. The answer is we know the contract for sale of goods must be in writing, don't we? So the answer there is A. Okay. Next, the writing requirement of contract law is known as the A, statute of laches, B, statute of parole evidence, B, best evidence rule, D, statute of frauds. Answer D, statute of frauds there, okay? All right, let's see here. All right, Sarah is a minor. Contract with Chris, an adult. In most states, the contract is A, void, B, voidable by Sarah. That's going to be your answer, B. C, voidable by Chris. D, voidable by either Sarah or Chris. Your answer is going to be B, voidable by Sarah. All right, I think you got a little gist there, how you know it's going right from your notes there, like you know already. But that's just a few of the questions there. So we'll cover a few more topics here before we call it a day on this lecture here. Let's see what we got next here, okay? Number 9 is the parole evidence rule. All right, that just says prior or contemporaneous agreements cannot be introduced into evidence to change or alter the written agreement. Prior, what gets me is law students that they've had the course in contract law, but they're studying for the bar and they don't understand the parole evidence rule, and it's so you're going to understand it. You're not preparing for the bar examination right now, but I promise you're going to understand the parole evidence rule when I get through with this, okay? Because I've done it so many times in the courtroom. All right. It just says prior or contemporaneous agreements cannot be introduced into evidence to change or alter the written agreement. Okay, let's suppose that this is a promissory note. this is not a promissory note, this is your handouts. But let's suppose it says promissory note up there, all right? And it's an agreement whereby you have loaned me $50,000, and I'm going to pay that back to you at $5,000 a month, some kind of interest. And I make one payment to you, and I don't make any more payments. So you're out $45,000, all right? You're going to sue me for the $45,000 plus lawyer's fee and whatever, all right, and interest and this and that. So now we're in court. We've done our discovery and all this. Now we're in court, all right? I'm on the witness stand. My lawyer says to me, Mark, what did she say to you? Well, first of all, Mark, is this a promissory note? Yes. Is your signature on this promissory note? Yes. Did you sign you signed the promissory note, which is her plaintiff's exhibit 1. You signed it. I'm the defendant. You're the plaintiff. You sued me. Yeah, I signed it. Why did you sign it? Well, I went to her, asked her, would she give me the money? Would she give me some money? I told her I couldn't pay it back. When did you tell her that? Well, I told her that when I went there 2 weeks before we did the promissory note. I told her I couldn't pay you back. I never will. I'll try, but I can't guarantee you I'm going to pay it back. Probably can't. And she said, well, I just wanted to help you out. You look like a man that needs to be helped. So she gave me and she said, I need a tax write-off anyway. I'd write it off as a bad debt because I can't pay it. She said, I understand that. You said that's fine. You don't. And that's what she told me. And what else did she tell you? What did she when you went to sign that promissory note, 2 weeks later when you signed that promissory note, what did you say to her? I said, well, now look, I told you I can't pay this. And she said, I know you can't pay it back. You told me that. Mark, don't worry about it. I signed it. Did the jury hear that? Yep. Well, your lawyer don't know the parole evidence rule. Or your lawyer's asleep or didn't have a bad day or whatever. Your lawyer don't know the parole evidence rule. Because now the jury's heard that. Let's do it again. You ready? Now, you've had my class. You ready? If you're ever in court, something, okay, here we go. I'm on the witness stand. My lawyer says to me, let me show you what's been marked as plaintiff's exhibit, what she's introduced as plaintiff's exhibit 1, the promissory. Is this a promissory note? Yes. Did you sign that promissory note? I did. Well, tell me what you told her 2 weeks before, when you went to talk to her about this $50,000, it was 2 weeks before this, yes. What did you tell her at that time? Your lawyer should say, what? Objection, Your Honor. And the judge will say to your lawyer, state your grounds. Your lawyer's going to say the parole evidence rule, and the judge is going to say sustained. Mr. McDaniel, you can't testify about that because that's a prior agreement. You cannot bring prior agreements or contemporaneous agreement. You cannot put that into evidence. And when I teach you the class on evidence, or last lecture, I'm going to tell you that's the reason the evidence is important because that's what the jury gets to hear as evidence. If you can't get it into evidence, the jury can't hear it. They can't make a decision based on something they don't hear. They can only make the decision based on what comes from the witness stand. So your lawyer says, objection, judge. And the judge says, grounds. You say parole evidence rule, sustained. You can't say that. And then my lawyer says to me, well, what do you say to her right before you signed it? What did you say to her? Your lawyer's going to say, what? Objection, Your Honor. Judge is going to say, state your grounds, and your lawyer's going to say parole evidence rule, and the judge is going to say sustained. Mr. McDaniel, you cannot answer that question. Now, if I answer that question, the judge is going to get very upset at me at that point. If I say, well, let me tell you what, after the judge does that, then it's going to be either a mistrial or I'm going to get sanctioned, and my lawyer's going to be a problem. I'm going to have a problem, okay? Because the judge sustained that objection, and I shouldn't have, because the parole evidence rule says You cannot introduce prior or contemporaneous agreements into evidence to change or alter the written agreement. The law looks with favor on written agreements. If you could introduce all your negotiations prior to the signing of the contract, then when would you ever why do you even need a written contract? The law looks with favor on written contracts. Therefore, you cannot introduce prior or contemporaneous agreements into evidence to change or alter the written agreement. Now, let me see if there's something else something I want to talk about here. Let's see here. I do want to talk, it's not in our notes here, but I want to talk about this because I should have it in there, but it's obviously not a test question. It's called accord and satisfaction. You'll study this in law school. It's also in your textbook, but I don't have a test question on it because I don't have it in here. But accord and satisfaction is this. We have the promissory note. You've loaned me $50,000. I paid $5,000. I call you up and say, I can't pay you anymore. I can pay you $10,000. I know I owe you $45,000, but I can pay you $10,000 more. Okay, and that's all I can pay. If you let me do it, I'll give you the $10,000. If not, I'm gonna have to file bankruptcy. I just can't pay you. And you say, I'll take the $10,000. Now, is that agreement prior or contemporaneous? No, it's after. The accord was, I came to you and said, I'll give you $10,000. That's all I can pay you. And you say, I agree. That's the accord. The satisfaction is when I give you the $10,000. Now, I better get that in writing, hadn't I? Because otherwise you wouldn't do this. But some people would take the $10,000, agree to that, take the $10,000 and then sue me for $35,000 and say, hey, you never told me that. We never agreed to that. So I would sure want to get that in writing that we have but you can have an accord and satisfaction. You cannot introduce prior contemporaneous agreements into evidence, change or alter the written agreement, but you can have an accord and satisfaction. You can have an agreement that you'll take less, and that's the accord and the satisfaction when I give you the $10,000. But be sure to get that in writing when you do that, because that's just kind of common sense right there. By the way, a lot of this stuff, I hope you see so far, a lot of law is common sense, isn't it? We can talk about it, but if you just use your common sense, you got terms and all that, but really it comes down to just using your good common sense. A lot of it, okay? All right, so let's get number 10 here. Get number 10. Look there, termination. I got accord and satisfaction and termination down there on number 11. I just looked at my notes. All right, well, number 10, transfer of contract rights and duties. Assignment of rights, delegation of duties, okay? Contract rights can be assigned. You can assign contract rights. If I agree to build a house for you for $500,000, let's say I'm a builder and I agree to build the house for you for $500,000. Can you call me up and say, I want you to build this house for my daughter? Can you do that? Yeah, you can assign that right. You have that right. You have contracted with me. You've paid me to build a house of $500,000. You can do that. You can assign that right to anybody you want to. You sign it to. I'll build the house. You sign that right. What if I'm an artist and you pay me $100,000? I'm supposed to be a good artist. I'm not. I could draw a stick man, but I'm not a good artist. But Hannah Lynn's a good artist. Talk to her about that soon. But anyway, so you contract with me to paint a portrait for you, and you say I pay you the $100,000, and before I start painting, you say I want you to paint my daughter. I don't want you to paint me. Okay, you can assign that right. You paid me $100,000, you can assign that right. That's an assignment of rights, okay? Now let's get to delegation of duties. By the way, if I'm that building contractor, I'll be able to use subcontractors and all that kind of stuff. That's a different lecture. That we talk about agency and independent contractors. That's a different lecture. Okay, now let's talk about assignment of contract rights. You have a contract right, you can assign that. Okay, all right. If I'm a ball player, professional ball player, suppose Aaron Judge, New York Yankees. Okay, great baseball player, New York Yankees. And suppose that the New York Yankees want to trade him. I guarantee he's got a no trade contract clause in his contract. But suppose he don't have a no trade clause. Can they trade him if he don't have a no trade? Yeah, they have a right. They pay him a lot of money. If they could trade him to another team, they have the right for him to play ball for them. But they could trade him if he didn't have, and I'm sure he does. But if he didn't have a no trade clause in his contract, they could trade him because they have a right for them to play for the Yankees. But they're paying him a lot of money. They can assign that contract right. Now let's look at delegation of duties. Okay, delegation of duties. Okay, not me, but suppose you want a famous artist to paint the portrait for you, and you pay that artist $100,000 or more, whatever you pay them. Okay, and you show up to get the portrait, and that great artist is not there. That great artist has delegated the duty to somebody else, to their understudy, their student. Can they do that? No, because that's a specialized duty that you've got you've hired this special person to do this. Okay, what about the professional ball player? What about great football player? Says I'm going to send so and so out to play quarterback. Bo Nix, I've heard Bo Nix is going to be starting for the Denver Broncos. So Bo Nix, first round draft pick, one of the first top people pick, and he says, says my debut for the Denver Broncos. I'm going to get I love my brother, and I'm going to get him to go out there and play the first 5 downs. Can he do that? No, because he has a special talent. You can't delegate that duty. Okay, you can assign contract rights, but you can't. Some duties you can't. Now again, a builder can delegate duties to subcontractors and stuff. Okay, but when you're talking about a special professional, a wrestler, or a boxer, something like that, I'm going to send my understudy out there to do this MMA match, whatever. I'm going to send this. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going. I know you contracted with me, but I'm going to delegate that to somebody else. Can't do it. Okay, so you can assign contract rights, but you cannot delegate duties if it's requires some kind of specialized skill. Okay, so that's got that. Let's get number 11. Let's see here. Okay, termination of contract rights. Okay, how do you end the contract? This is common sense. Full performance. In other words, I agreed to build your house. I built the house. By agreement of the parties, both of you agree that I'm not going to build the house. If we start building houses, and now I don't want to build it, and you say I don't want you to build it. It's an agreement. We both agree. Next is rescission. Okay. The contract is we rescind the contract. Just like one of the parties says, I can't do it. I rescind the contract. Novation. This is the test question. Novation test question. Okay. Novation is where you have A and B agreeing to do a contract. Okay. A agree, B have a contract. A agrees to build a house for B. A and B both agree that C is going to be substituted for B to build the house. That's called novation. All right? That's just a substitution of the parties, and where both parties agree. If A and B agree that C is going to do what B was supposed to do, then that's called novation. That's okay. The reason I always ask that on the test because I have a very, very good friend. He went to Harvard Law School. He wanted to be a trial lawyer. And by the way, he's a very, very successful education attorney. He's president of the university system. I won't say what state because this man's just a very good friend of mine. And he wanted to be a trial lawyer. And the first case he had, he was in court, and the other lawyer pled novation. It was his first case in court. And the judge said to the lawyer, to my friend, what do you say to that? And my friend said, he just froze. He said, I just froze. I didn't know what to say. And the jury was listening, and he said, it embarrassed me. And he said, it was the most embarrassing thing I've ever done. And I froze. I said, Judge, I don't know. I don't know what novation is. And it's just such a simple thing. And he said, so I quit. I went back. I went into education law, and I decided to do that and he did. He's very, 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 very successful. He's been a very successful education lawyer and university president in a university systems, not in this state, but in another state. And just an outstanding person. But so he quit practicing law. Okay. Now, you people in there, listen, it's going to be trial lawyers. You ready? The other lawyer, you know what an ovation is, by the way. You can get it right on the test. A and B have a contract. A and B agree that C is going to do what B does, just substitute the party. That's okay. It's called novation. So you're in court, and the other party pleads novation, and you don't know what novation is. You do now because you've taken this class, but suppose you just didn't know, and you're in court. What you say is, judge say, what do you say about that? Mark, well, judge, that's basic, fundamental law. It don't apply. If he's saying it applies, you're the other side, then it don't apply. Well, why don't it apply? Because it's basic law, contract law, Your Honor. Yeah, I know you can't get no more fundamental. It's basic contract law. It's almost insulting that he would even raise that issue. Well, the judge is going to say, okay, because I'm going to keep going. Even if I don't know what novation is, I shouldn't even tell you that. But anyway, trial lawyer, okay, you forgot what it was and you just, hey, go with it, and act like you know what you're doing. The jury's watching you, and the jury's saying, man, this guy, if he don't, that's what this lawyer, my friend, the jury was watching, he was looking at me, I froze, I didn't know what to say. Well, you know what to say, don't you? Because you've taken my contracts class. All right, we got some more to cover. We've gone over a little bit over time than I normally put on the lectures. So we'll start our next lecture with, we talked about accord satisfaction there, number 11. We'll start with number 12. I'll make a note for myself in the next lecture. I'll start with number 12 on contracts, and then we'll do UCC Article 2 next lecture, and we'll do products liability. That'll get us up to our next test. You all have a wonderful week and a wonderful rest of the day. If you're watching this in the morning or the afternoon, and if it's night, about time probably go to bed. But anyway, y'all have a good remainder of the week, and thank you so much.